Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the European Show. I'm your host, Mo Stewart, and I'm very, very pleased to be joined by the premier Spanish journalist and broadcaster, Mr. Guillem Balague, because once again, we are talking about a Spanish football team. While most other football teams are now well into all of their transfer tattle, for Liverpool, there is still one more game to go, and what a game it is. Champions League final against the mighty Real Madrid. Now, Guillem, we had Semra Hunter on for our semi-final preview show, and she spoke about the Madridistas believing that the Champions League was their destiny this year and, well, almost every year, basically. And then they went and beat Manchester City the way that they beat Manchester City. So surely amongst the fans, that belief has grown. Is there similar confidence within the squad, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think they believe it's their destiny. They just think that they can win it, and they have everything that's required to win it. So right now, yes, they are in a final, and they're going to go to Paris. The ones that will go to Paris, or the ones that will watch it on television, believing that it's going to happen. I've started doing some previews with some friends, and also on Five Live and CBS and so on. And I've got the impression that many people, in fact, I've been asked 2 or 3 times already. Do you think Real Madrid have got a chance? It's like, what? I said, I don't know where that confidence comes from. When you play Real Madrid, you should know that the mixture of the addition of the confidence that comes through the stands and through the fans, the confidence when you wear that white shirt, the history that's behind it, all that put together. Of course, it gives you the feeling that once you're into a final, that is just a game, of course you can win. Not just that, you go into the pitch thinking, it's possible. It doesn't matter who the rival is. So I don't believe in destiny and all that, but I believe that they have created an environment, a culture in which they go to a game knowing that they will win. Then, things happen, of course.
Of course, things always tend to happen in Champions League finals, which we'll get on later. But it's interesting to me that you say that it seems that the consensus from some of the neutrals seems to be that Liverpool are slight favourites. But we here in Liverpool are very aware of the dangers of Real Madrid, and particularly the way that their preparation for the final has been considerably easier than Liverpool's. Liverpool have been fighting for the title to the very last minute of the Premier League season, unfortunately unsuccessfully. Whereas Real Madrid have had their proverbial feet up for the last 4 La Liga games. Carlo Ancelotti's been able to rest and rotate some of his older players, but also allow some of the fringe players to get some minutes, get some rhythm, just in case they may be needed if the game goes the distance. So when you look at it from that perspective, even though there was a derby defeat in there, I mean, the most insignificant derby defeat I can think of in long memory, but overall, for Carlo Ancelotti, that preparation couldn't have gone better, really, should it?
Really? I'm going to put you another example. So imagine that you present the show 3 times a week, and you do it to the best of your capabilities, and you prepare yourself, and you're always on a high in terms of professionalism and delivery, etc. And I say to you, don't come for 2 weeks, but come for the last week of the season, because I want you, at your best. Would you be at your best? You may not be.
It's true. I mean, it depends what I'm doing in the meantime, but that's a very good point. I think the intensity of the kind of game that you want for a Champions League final, I think it might become a bit of an issue with the kind of rhythm versus rest. And you mentioned the final game against Betis. That looked a lot more like the team we expect to see for this game. And they are taking a bit of a risk because they weren't exactly fluid in that game. It ended 0-0, didn't it?
It's a Champions League final. There's no references. So that goes for both the last 2 questions. Do we rest the side, or do we actually make sure that they compete until the end? So they have that feeling of competing, which can disappear very quickly if you are an elite footballer. That's what they tell me anyway. But I go back to my own work. If I disappear for 2 weeks, it's like I've started from scratch. So do we know if what's best? No, we don't really know. Is it a reference to last game? possibly not. In terms of the lineup, yes. There's only one doubt: is it going to be Rodrigo or Valverde? And I think it will be Valverde because Rodrigo has come on from the bench and does really well. So you know that you got somebody at the bench that can change the dynamic, that can give you new energy. So Camavinga will come on at some point. Kroos won't finish. Those are the things that we've been seeing in recent games. But because there is no formula to winning, these things could be a good thing or a bad thing. We just don't know. Certainly, what's the case, and that is to me a worry. And I asked Modric about that on Tuesday. For Liverpool, is that the little injuries or the half injuries or the players that cannot give 100%. Now that is more than the rest, more than who you played in the last game, more the rotations or the fact that you've been competing until the end. If Van Dijk is not fit, then it's a big problem. If Fabinho is not fit and Thiago is not fit, and then you have to play Henderson and Keita, for instance, it's a completely different team. So that is the concern. Fabinho gets asked 5 days ago, are you going to play? Of course, he answered yes. And of course, Salah is going to say yes. And of course, Thiago is going to say, even though he's struggling, perhaps the one that's struggling the most, he'll say, I'm ready. But it is when you start, as you say, when the high tempo starts and you have to stretch yourself and make that run that if you have a bit injured, you don't want to do. That kind of things is where those little details is where, Real Madrid have got a certain advantage. But Liverpool is a better side. There's no argument about it. It is a better team, 100% a better team. But this is Real Madrid.
Yes.
This particular Real Madrid, who have got this habit to change things when they seem to be going in a completely different direction. Coming to the pitch knowing that even if they go 2-0 down, they can still turn things around, which is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, really. If you repeat it plenty of times, you believe it, but so does the rival. Because let me tell you one thing, the comebacks of the season, that's never, ever happened in the history of the game. Ever. Never, ever. But because they say, oh, yeah, we do this all the time, they believe it. So when they score the first goal, their mind thinks, right, this is coming now. And the rivals believe it and become smaller. But it's never happened. What has happened in the 80s is that Real Madrid used to do that once or twice a season. Not 3 times, not in the last few minutes, not against 3 of the best sides in the world. So it's unique, but they transform it into a narrative that means that they also get that advantage. The narrative is Liverpool are tired, Real Madrid are fresh, Liverpool have got injuries, Real Madrid can come back even if they concede. So they're winning the pre-game match, if you like.
That is really interesting because a lot of those same qualities is exactly what Liverpool have drawn on. And the way you talk about the fact that because it's happened before, it makes you believe it's happened more often. That's very much Liverpool as well. If you think about the big comebacks like the Barcelonas and Borussia Dortmund, it's like we almost convince ourselves that we can do it at a drop of a hat. But the reality is that it doesn't actually happen very often. And that's why it's so surprising.
Who's been talking about the Barcelona game, or who's been talking about Istanbul, or who's been talking about comebacks? It's Real Madrid who dominating that scene because they've done it this season, of course. Can it happen? Yes, it could be that Liverpool have to actually make a comeback, and they can come back because they've got the quality and the way to do it, and the intensity and the players and all that. But in terms of the pre-game, I think that's a 2-0 to Real Madrid right now.
No, for sure. Now, one other thing I wanted to ask about the difference in the systems. One thing that Klopp mentioned when he was facing Tuchel in the FA Cup final is that the options that they have made it difficult to game plan for. Now, Carlo Ancelotti has faced Liverpool many times with many different teams, but with those doubts over some of the key players, does it make it harder for him to game plan? Because he may well have a different plan whether he's facing a Salah, Van Dijk, Fabinho, Thiago, or whether he is a Henderson, Keita, Matip example.
Give me an example, just one, of a game plan from Real Madrid this season.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a good question. Because
I'll help you, Mo. I'll help you. They don't have a game plan. No, seriously. They I know Pep Guardiola and before that Tuchel. They don't know how to. They do know how to prepare a game, but jokingly, I heard the City coaching staff is like, "How do you prepare against Real Madrid? They've got no pattern. of play. That you just don't know. You know that if they recover the ball and Courtois gets it, he's going to try to deliver to Vinicius, and then he'll link up with Benzema. You know that much. But every single team in the world, apart from Real Madrid, have got a pattern of play. You know that if that guy comes in, the other one goes there. And you more or less know because you see it in every game. Real Madrid are not about that. They are about a moment, a move, a player. Yeah. And it's impossible to predict that. And it's impossible to prepare against that, if you like. So the same way that Klopp will have the difficulty of preparing against a move, a moment, and a player, how do you prepare? How do you prepare when you see Rodrigo rolling through the center of the box to head a ball? He doesn't do that. He's the winger. But at Real Madrid, that happens. How do you prepare against that? You just got to be alert. And in the case of Real Madrid, they won't do a big effort to they'll obviously try to keep the ball for as long as they can. When they don't have it, they will try to pressure high sometimes, but that's not in their nature. If they feel fresh, they may do that. But generally, the important bit is, okay, if they pressure high and Liverpool beats that, track back and be compact very, very quickly. And they got fast centre-backs that can turn back, and Casemiro is also clever too. There's all that, but that is not. There's not going to be much more planning than that, because this is the exception to the rule. This is a team that depends on the individual qualities of the players, and that quality has taken them to the Champions League final and winning the league, which is not too bad.
It's a fascinating matchup, really, because as you say, it's hard to predict what kind of final we're going to see, because the traditional way that these finals play out is you think it's going to be two teams cagey, maybe one big moment. But as you've seen with Real Madrid, they do produce those moments, and Liverpool have produced those moments. And if we think back to the last time they met in the Champions League final, it was decided on, well, 2 or 3 massive moments. So the suggestion is that that's really going to be how it goes again. But until the game starts, we're never really sure.
Well, it depends if there is an early goal that breaks all our predictions and analysis, because then it will open up. If that's the case, then it'll be 2 heavyweights going at each other, and that's what I imagine. There won't be so much control. It'll be about, all right, we've conceded the first one, we're going to go and get a goal, and then the game opens up then. But if that doesn't happen, what Real Madrid wants is to control the tempo, to actually make sure that it slows down, that it's not played at the way that Liverpool wants. To do that, they have to get the ball even more often than they do in La Liga, for instance, or in other games. But I think that Liverpool now, and this is why for me it's the best Liverpool in history, certainly the best Liverpool on the club, is that they have different layers, and you have the ability to counter-attack, to pressure high, and to do it intensively and very often. But you also have the ability to pass the ball. I think in the Champions League, possession stats say that Liverpool have the ball even longer periods than Real Madrid. So, and it's quality possession, because if it's Fabinho and Thiago and Mané in a more central position, there's quality and intricacy in the passing. So it's a very, very matured side with all those possibilities. That's what I'm saying is better than Real Madrid. They, the way that the fullbacks attack and how there is so much density of players when you attack through the center. Nobody does that. Everybody plays down the wings and then put it in. No, you go through the center, but you go like fall, get into the box. Hard to defend that. So if it goes Liverpool way, you can see coming, 1 goal and another goal and another goal maybe. But if Real Madrid can keep possession and can control things and can allow the likes of Kroos and Casemiro and Modric to dominate and take breathers, then Liverpool may get into trouble, because they're able to beat any line of pressure. They're able to give the ball in the last third, and once there, with Benzema as well, in the form is in, anything can happen.
Anything can happen. And Benzema is one of those players who I expect to be putting himself front and center of this game of moments, as we mentioned it. And on Liverpool's side, we mentioned him before, Mo Salah. Now, there's been an interesting reaction, I think it's fair to say, in Madrid to some of Salah's comments about wanting to play in Madrid and looking for revenge for the last final. I personally was torn between admiring the confidence of the man to speak his mind, but also being wary of poking the bear slightly. How was it received, maybe by the media in Madrid?
It was an interesting reaction because it's like a 12-year-old kid approaching a 20-year-old man and saying, I'm gonna revenge you, and the 20-year-old man going like, yeah, whatever, kid. It was that kind of reaction from Madrid because they're not going to be affected by mind games, and actually Salah has shown his weakness. He's not going to be a level-headed mind there. It's going to be one that requires to impress, wants to win the game, wants to therefore, because of what happened, has got unfinished business. Oh, right, okay. There's a gap there. There's a little door that Real Madrid can exploit during the game. Before it, it's like, great if he thinks that revenge is at stake. But see how Klopp reacted to all that? It's like, no. We're not talking revenge. We're not talking revenge. This is just a football game. Because I think it showed a weakness there. I don't know how important will be or not, but Real Madrid don't give them any advantage at all.
Yeah, I did very much get the feeling that Real Madrid weren't seeing this as anything other than a game in itself. They'd already forgotten the trophy. I mean, it was the one of 3 trophies that they won in a row. They didn't necessarily need to differentiate. And there's that kind of cold calmness about Real Madrid, as we've seen, because they're going through the different rounds, at the point where they sense blood in their opponents. We saw it against PSG, we saw it against Chelsea and Manchester City. They are able to capitalize in their moments, and that
it's not like that. It's not like that. That's what the stories will tell you, and that's what history will tell you. That when they smell blood, they go for it. Why didn't they smell it before? Why did they have to wait until minute 90 to smell blood? Were they having a flu and they couldn't smell? What is it?
Okay. Well, in that case, maybe they didn't smell it, but I certainly got the sense that their opponents started to fear more at that point. And I will say that definitely about PSG. Maybe that's their own muscle memory, but maybe that's the difference. Liverpool don't have that fear because they've been the ones coming back in previous years.
Real Madrid played really badly this Champions League. Really badly. Not just poorly, just a bit poorly. Really badly. Just go back to Paris. 1-0. It should have been 4-0. Go back to the Etihad. It could have been 6-1. If you like, just go back to Santiago Bernabeu against Chelsea. They conceded 4 goals before they scored. Real Madrid scored, but one of them was disallowed. Go to PSG at the Santiago Bernabeu. Mbappé scored a hat-trick, but 2 of the goals were disallowed. So they played really badly. They defended really badly. They didn't control the games. And it's like, what is it we have to do not to go through all the things that they did? But then, even though, again, I asked those guys that I mentioned earlier, what happens to the minds the minute before the first goal at the Bernabeu? And some would admit it. They were like, it's not going to happen, but, you have to keep going. And I was sitting at the stands, and I could see around me, people were in despair. It's not going to happen. Some left in some of the games. So it's not like they were just waiting for the moment to actually go and kill them. No, they were dead, but not completely dead. And then, of course, when you have that chance, that goal comes. And then, yes, at the moment that comes, it goes back to that psychology we were talking earlier of the self-fulfilling prophecy. Because they're thinking, it's going to happen again. And I'm thinking, again, it hasn't happened that often. But, yeah, it's part of the DNA. And the rivals know that as well. So, oh, my God, it's about to happen again. So it's a clever, that's why I'm saying that they're winning the pre-game battle, if you like, because they have that history to them. Oh, well, there's the supposed history. They create a history, some of it true, but not at the level that they constantly ask of their own teams. Because the only thing is that every time, and I'm telling you, every time Real Madrid loses the first leg of a knockout stage in the Champions League, every single time, in the last 20 years, they call for the comeback, for the magic comeback, every single time. And how often has happened? Not that often. Not that often.
See, I was unsure when I first started this interview whether I was going to feel better or worse about our chances after speaking to you. And I feel better. So thank you for that. I think it's an interesting thing what we do. We focus on those 10% where they were playing well and forget about the 90% where they were in.
Yeah, but Mo, how do you feel better? Like, you facing still Real Madrid, so you will play really well, and they can beat you. So be prepared for the be prepared for the fall, because that's what they do. So I don't know. I wouldn't feel too great. I'd just be very, very nervous until the end of the game. Anyway.
I'm still nervous. Don't worry, I'm still nervous. And I mean, it's all very well me sitting here in the middle of the week discussing this. When it gets to the day of the game, all of these permutations will be running through all of our heads. Now, one person who won't be on our minds on the day of the game is a man who won't be playing for either side, as it turns out, which is Kylian Mbappe, who has just announced that he will sign a new deal in Paris. Now, this is the second time in a row Real Madrid looked like they were confident in securing his signature, only for PSG to pull on his heartstrings and maybe a few other things to convince him to stay. Now, this is a story that you've reported on for quite some time. Do we know exactly how close he came to coming this time?
First of all, it's 3 times, because when he was 14, he went to train with Real Madrid and decided not to stay because he was too young, obviously. So that will happen at some point. But the list of reasons are long, and everybody, because people want an easy answer to complex situations, and whoever wants to put it down to money, fine, you know, live your life in that superficial way, not a problem. Yeah, money. But that was just one side of it. There was the pressure from the authorities, political authorities in France, Emmanuel Macron, without one of them, who tried to convince him by Macron, who wanted Qatar not to be unhappy, and wanted to keep some of the money that Mbappe brings to the nation, but also wanted PSG and Paris and France to still be candidates to win the biggest trophies abroad. All that was in his mind when he was saying to Mbappe, look, Real Madrid have got 13 Champions League. So even if you win the next one, you'll be a guy that has won 1 out of 14. But at PSG, we never won it. So come and make history. You're only 23, do it for a while. And the idea, as he told me in the chat we had on Monday, is that, the dream is not over with Real Madrid. Why would it have to be over? I mean, in many people's minds, it's all about money, isn't he? But he's also a kid that wants to play for Real Madrid. And he thinks he'll manage to do that when he decides. So he hasn't said no to Real Madrid. He said yes to Paris and France. And most likely in his mind, he thinks, I've just said to Real Madrid, see you later. It's not the right moment just yet.
I think it's interesting because as Liverpool fans, I do feel echoes of the Steven Gerrard story there, in terms of everyone else is saying to you, well, obviously he's going to go to Chelsea, he's going to go to Real Madrid, etc., and win countless trophies. But the pull of the man and wanting to do it for the team that he loves is a strong one, and we really shouldn't discount it. One thing I
don't think I've ever had the possibility of discussing Steven Gerrard and moving to Real Madrid or Chelsea. So I'm going to do it now. You should have let him go. You should have let him go, because he's a man that had wanted to challenge himself, wanted to come out of his comfort zone, wanted to get his family another experience, wanted to see if he could do it somewhere else, wanted to play with other people, wanted to play with other fans. He wanted all that, and you didn't let him go. And that could have been Chelsea, or it could have been Real Madrid. That's right. He could have played for Real Madrid. And now he's a manager who has had experience at one club, well, 2, but mostly 1. So his life is a little bit less rich than if you had let him go. So I don't think we should celebrate, and I'm a Liverpool fan. I don't think we should celebrate the fact that we didn't let him go. I think we should actually feel but we should actually feel a little bit guilty, because we didn't let him and his family experience another life and challenge himself, which is, by the way, the thing that takes you to the top as an elite athlete, is that you challenge yourself. And we said to him, no, don't challenge yourself anymore. Just stay. and he couldn't do that extra bit of seeing if he could do it somewhere else.
That is interesting. And I mean, when you think about it, him as a human person, then that's a fair point. I think from us as Liverpool fans, we are very selfish about that and are very pleased for the years we got out of him. Maybe if he had won the league in 13-14, we could have said goodbye at that point, but maybe that would have even been too late. Who knows? We'll never know. One thing I do want to say more, tying back to the Mbappe question, is around Carlo Ancelotti himself. And I know that he's a very experienced coach, but he will have had to answer questions about a fella who is not going to be in his squad for this game. And there is the danger that in some circles it can become a distraction. I know that Perez let the players know in the dressing room after Betis. Now, I don't know how far along these players were connecting with him, thinking about him. They aren't the kind of people who are going to get distracted at a big game like this. They've been for too many, surely.
Of course. There's no other possible answer. Of course, they're not going to be distracted. In some cases, he may have been hurt or feel disappointed about it. And I think certainly Benzema is one of them. But that's it. I mean, he on Tuesday he was saying when he was asked, we don't get it. We don't want to talk about those little things. But when he says little, means that he did hurt him a little bit. That Mbappe probably had said, yes, this is it. I'm coming, and then eventually didn't. But that's it. That's it. This is a team that has played, 3/4 of the squad have played 4 Champions League finals and won them, and they're about to play another one. There's nothing bigger. And by the way, they got there without Mbappe. They will win it or lose it. But if they win it, it'll be without Mbappe. So who is Mbappe anyway?
Indeed. Who is Mbappe anyway? That's what we should name this one show. I feel like you've been more than generous with your time. So I'm going to ask you for one final question. Who do you think is going to win?
I mean, if it wasn't Real Madrid, I'll give you an answer. With Real Madrid, who knows? Who knows? They could win it. If they win it, I've got the impression that we'll go like, but how could they win it when actually Liverpool play better? The logic says, but this is logic versus faith and magic. The logic says the Liverpool are a better side, and if things are done the proper way, they've got the goal scorers, they've got the defenders, they've got the goalkeeper, they've got the midfielders to win this game. But what I would say is that it's more equal. That, as I said earlier, I've got the impression that some assume that that Real Madrid are lucky to be at this stage here. Yeah, well, change the word. It's not luck. They've won it 13 times, so it's their competition, and when that happens, when you feel that you kind of own the place, you have to give them the chance of maybe winning it. I don't know. I just hope that it is as good a game as we expect it to be, and I feel it will be. It will be a memorable evening, so I cannot wait.
We can't predict the game, but I think that's a very strong prediction to end with. Guillem, thank you for spending the time with us today, and I may be seeing you in Paris.
Maybe see you in Paris.